Hey guys, I am here for another recorded video. This is not a live. But yes, welcome on back into the channel. This is actually something that I talked about on my most recent live when it pertains to the next charts that I was planning to do. So I know I don't have her picture up, but I will be looking at the astrology or the natal chart energy when it pertains to Summer Walker. Here she is right here, and I am so glad that we got a accurate birth time. As you can see here, the reliability is the A, so we are doing pretty good at this particular point. So again, this is going to be a video just based off of her moon sign or her personality. That's been the thing that I've been looking at recently when it pertains to these celebrities. Okay, so I need to pull this up. I forgot to pull up my astrology and numerology guide so that we can go through that. But I am doing that right now, and then we will take a look at a little something outside of her moon placement. You guys know in the other birth charts that I read, I paid specific attention to the day that someone was born. Okay, so Summer Walker was born on April the 11th. Now, of course, we know that she is in Aries, which the sun is exalted in Aries. Okay, pardon me, but I want to pay close attention to her number 11. Now we know it's a master number, but I like to break it down to simple digits. So the number 11 broken down, of course, brings us to the number 2 right here. So number 2, which is ironic how we're going to be talking about her moon placement because it's tied to her personality, and the day that she was born is also tied to the moon as well. So we have Aquarius energy, okay? So not only do we have moon energy, but we have kind of like an Aquarius undertone. So the highlights here when we're talking about the number 2 in Summer's case is we have, we may have someone who likes to share, or sharing is a part of their qualities. We have someone who has a need to relate to others through feelings and emotions. And with this particular sentence right here, you can kind of maybe gauge an idea as to why the music that she makes comes out that the way it does. That's that moon energy at work very heavily because of that need to relate to others and through feelings. Even if the situation isn't necessarily happening to her, she may have a talent where she can almost like jump into the body of the character that she wants to create. Now, I'm not talking about in terms of performing wise. I'm just talking about in terms of writing the music or singing the music. It's almost just like using visualization. Okay. If my words seem like, a little bit jargled, it's because I just started my retainer, and so my retainer is a lot thicker than my Invisalign ones. So it's really a difficult adjustment, and it still kind of hurts. So I'm trying to make it through. You know what I'm saying? But so that's why with her, when it pertains to her music, because also Moon is tied to Cancer, Cancer is tied to music, Cancer is tied to women. So in some sort of a manner, we may have someone who is a good storyteller when it pertains to maybe depicting the battles of other women. Doesn't necessarily have to be her own. That's the catch here. I mean, yes, it would be good if it was all of the experiences that she had, but a lot of times, maybe more times than not, these are things that she probably witnessed or saw, you know, through experiences done with other women. So it could be sisters, it could be friends, it could be maybe around the neighborhood, however. Now, another highlight here with this Aquarius or number 2 or this number 2 energy is diplomacy. Also, we have cooperation. Okay, cooperation, um, collaboration, even, but it kind of depends. So this cooperative type of personality or this cooperative type of energy kind of gives me that vibe of someone who does what you ask them to do and they really don't give you much pushback. But sometimes this can create a personality where they can be a pushover, especially when it pertains to their emotions. Speaking of emotions, the challenges here with that number two energy can be someone who could be very hypersensitive, where it doesn't take much to make them cry. It doesn't take much to for them to go into this emotional thing, whatever it is that we want to call it. And then we have defensive. So we could have someone where emotionally they are always on the defense. So you may feel, or the public, because the moon is tied to the public may even possibly feel like it's hard to get through to her. It's hard for her to listen because we can't forget that Aquarius is also a fixed sign. And we know fixed signs' downside can be them being very stubborn, unwilling to change. So, even with that being said, we may even have someone that has a struggle when it comes to their, you know, emotionally checking themselves at the door. It could be because we may have someone who could be kind of emotional. In their mind, they may feel like, emotions are good. It's good to have emotions, no matter how volatile or no matter how crazy they are. What's wrong with that? I mean, I get the point, but as I've said before on multiple readings, it can come to a point where it's just like a lack of emotional maturity. And that is what I can see hypersensitivity as well as defensiveness as when it pertains to the moon. Like you just struggle to control your emotions, which can be a blessing or a curse. Of course, like I said, depending on the situation. Okay. And then we have confrontational when it pertains to the challenges here. So that need to want to fight, or maybe even that type of um I don't know, the word's not undertone, or that type of energy where you're taking jabs whenever you're feeling backed against the wall, especially emotionally speaking. Now you're taking jabs at people, at things, or at yourself, whatever the situation is. Because that's where that confrontational energy comes out. But the confrontational energy may also come out in a manner of you are wanting other people to chime in to kind of like say that you didn't do anything wrong. So you're doing that in a manner to not have to take accountability for your emotional reaction to things. So I feel like in this instance, this confrontational energy is bred out of you trying to find a way to relate or trying to find a way to excuse yourself for your bad behavior. So you're trying to get other people to be like, yeah, you're totally not wrong for the way you feel. And with summer being in the public eye, there is going to be an abundance of that, but maybe not forever. People may give her a pass one time or two, but not three, four, five, or six. And she may start to realize that as she gets older because we know the moon is a very young energy. So honestly, the moon needs to mature. Think about it. It's like the moon is very prominent whenever you are born. And think about how you have to emotionally mature from baby on up to adult. Some people never do. Okay. Some people never hit that point where they actually emotionally mature. They're about as emotional as they were as soon as they came out the womb, you know. So the lessons here with the number two energy is learn to be more receptive. And this could be also learn to be more receptive to other people's stories. It's not just about you. It's not necessarily about what you went through. It's like you can put that on paper when it pertains to content that you need, possibly when it pertains to music. But whenever you move from music and you go to real world, you may not be able to transition that into real world stuff in terms of being understanding or being empathetic of what other people are going through. It kind of gives me that energy of somebody where outside of that is, if it's not happening to them, it's just like, well, too bad. That's not happening to me. So sorry for you. But then when it's happening to them, now you're looking every which way for people's sympathy. And when it's not there, then you become confrontational. You may possibly become petty because the Aquarius energy kind of reminds me of, in this particular context, the Aquarius energy kind of reminds me of like that Five of Swords type of vibe. That win at all costs type of thing. You don't know how to be the loser. You don't know how to necessarily accept defeat. You try to find a way to always turn the situation around in your favor if you feel like you're losing. So it may be one of those particular situations here as well. Another lesson when it pertains to this number two energy is open up more to what life has to offer. You don't know what life has to offer if you are always cutting yourself short and sticking to what you know. And that could be a lesson that, like, she may be someone who is afraid to try things. So maybe even in the concept of her being a musician, this could have been something that she was also afraid to try as well. And then we also have give more. But this goes back to my original point where I just said we have somebody where it may be like if the shoe is on the other foot, you want sympathy, empathy. But whenever it's somebody else who is in the same predicament as you, you're really not sympathetic of their situation because it's not you. It's just like, well, I don't gotta deal with it. I don't really see the big issue, you know? Or you may even possibly try to find a way to justify the trauma or the bullshit that they've been through to make yourself feel better, you know. So we've kind of went through that, and I will, minimize this and we will look at her chart. Now we're in her chart. And isn't it ironic how she has moon in Aquarius, and we were just talking about that. So she has moon in Aquarius in the second house. Now the second house is tied to one's throat. Okay. She also has her moon in an aspect with Mercury. But the thing is, this aspect right here, the thing is, it's an unfavorable aspect. So Mercury and moon are not in a good they're not good business right now because we know moon again is mind, Mercury is intellect. We could even say here there may be some negative thinking patterns, especially possibly when it pertains to social media, because we have Aquarius, when it pertains to um community, the community she belongs to, the community that she was put in, when it possibly pertains to love, or when it possibly pertains to self-worth, when it possibly pertains to possessions. We may have some negative energy there when it pertains to Summer Walker's personality. Because when Moon and Mercury meet up and they're not harmonious, then this can produce somebody who can have a very changeable nature, also a changeable disposition. So you have to be careful in a way when it pertains to her because she could easily change her disposition, maybe right on the spot, especially if there's money on the line. So it could be one of those people where her disposition may change if she possibly is for victims, but then she realizes who the um who the perpetrator is, and it could be somebody who may be able to elevate her career or whatever the situation is. Now your tune is changing. So it's like, what happened to the original disposition? But that's what you have to be mindful of because also Moon Mercury in a negative aspect, in a square aspect, can create somebody who can be kind of, can be materialistic. Let me say that. Okay. And another thing as well with this aspect, you could have somebody who can be too independent And because of this two independent nature, they're constantly met with opposition, especially when it pertains to, again, love, or when it pertains to their self worth or possessions or bank account, whatever it could be. Okay. Let me go because there's something else I wanted to mention. Oh, yes. Superficiality is the key word here with this particular aspect. And also inability to concentrate. So it kind of comes across in a manner where maybe like a, I don't want to say a one hit wonder, but it almost comes across that way. And not saying that they, you know, can't be more, but they struggle to concentrate, in a way. Who knows? It almost makes you think of like somebody who has, ADHD. They just can't sit for long periods of time and concentrate on the task at hand, you know. So there's another thing I wanted to mention with this particular aspect. So another thing as well with this Mercury square moon, we have someone who battles between their heart and their mind. They don't necessarily know what path or what direction to go in when it pertains to, do I choose my heart or do I choose my mind? It's like they're always having a constant debate internally. And this almost feels like to me somebody where you could be talking to them and they're not even listening because they're going through 50 million things in their head. So, with that being said, Summer may not really be a good listener. I mean, of course, depends on the situation, but all in all, she just may not necessarily be a good listener. And also, we may have someone who is constantly questioning people, constantly questioning things. But again, it almost comes across as like somebody who struggles to turn their brain off. So to me, that makes me think of someone where it doesn't really matter what you do, you're always going to be questioned by them. Now, could that be trust issues? Maybe. Or could it simply just be a issue of control? Because the good thing though with this particular placement is we have a creative genius, and that kind of works because the creativity, of course, comes through here and it comes through here as well. So we have the Aquarius energy is the musician. So is Taurus. Taurus is the musician. Taurus is the singer, and Taurus or Mercury is in the fifth house of performers, in the fifth house of entertainers. I don't know. Also, for some reason, it makes you think of maybe even somebody who suffers with memory issues, since the mind and the intellect aren't necessarily cohesive or are not necessarily in harmony. Then that may be a little bit of an issue there. But the thing is with this particular placement is that anything that she would feel strongly about or have an opinion on, again, she may say it, but in her mind, she's probably questioning, is it right? Did I say that right? Is it this? Is it that? Which entails creates this indecisiveness. And like I said before, with all this questioning, this can have a detrimental effect on her personal relationships as well, especially since her Mercury is in the sign of Taurus or in a Venus ruled sign. Now, the crazy thing is, you know, this particular placement also produces someone that doesn't really care about what other people think. However, the partners that they are dating, married to, likely, they care about what people think of them, which causes issues. So, with that being said, it doesn't matter for her how crazy she looks on the internet or whatever the situation is, But again, the person that she's laying next to at nighttime, they are bothered by that, but they may not necessarily say it. And so it also could be one of those things where they may be like, wow, you're such a creative genius whenever you put the pen in your hand or whenever you get on the mic. But outside of that, like, where is your brain cells? Like, did you turn it off or something? But a lot of that is not that, that she's not intellectual. She just won't stop questioning everything to even take in information. So it's almost like one of those students that won't really apply themselves in school. And you're like, wow, that is unfortunate. Because if you applied yourself, you could be at the top of the class. You could have top grades. And I don't know, maybe she did have top grades. If she did, good for her. She battled through that. But this kind of gives me that type of vibe here, you know? Um, so another thing as well with this aspect, provocative. And her, possibly provocative nature or anything like that. I'm not saying she's being provocative, but that can be the thing that breaks through the doorways of fame or infamy, you know. Um, so this can be a good thing, especially in terms of creative genius, or this could be a bad thing. So it's probably a good thing in terms of creativity, but it's probably a bad thing in terms of personal relationships because even though you don't care about what people think, the people that you are dealing with absolutely care about that. And they eventually will get to a point where it's just like, you know what, it's just too much. I can't constantly be told all the time, that I don't like the way that your girlfriend dresses. I don't like the way that she wears her hair. I don't like the way that she walks. Scrutiny. It's unfortunately is one of those situations where for Summer Walker, this is not for everybody. For Summer Walker, you know, um people or men just are not going to accept her for how she is, especially also since her Mercury is in a house of sexual encounters, more so one night stands. It's more so like casual sex or just casual things. But I know, especially with her moon, let me erase this, especially with her moon making an aspect to her Venus, she wants marriage and it's in the seventh house. She wants marriage. She wants long term relationships. And actually, marriage and long term relationships is more important than music. Maybe for her, maybe, this is just my thinking, maybe for her, getting into music, being an artist is what she feels like she needs to do in order to get married. Because maybe for her, she feels like if I did not forge this path for myself, maybe I would never get married. But it's almost just like maybe this was the wrong path to take because now look at you. Because actually, Venus Moon aspect can create a lot of kids and twins, like multiples, maybe like octomom or quads or triplets. So she has to be careful about that because, she may have two sets of twins. Okay. But I really want to draw some light or shed some light on this Uranus conjunct moon aspect because it's a really tight aspect and I feel like it really speaks to her personality because it's all about individualistic personality and it's all about freedom of emotional expression. Okay? Now, the thing is, though, that there's a lot of subconscious energy here when it pertains to this moon conjunct um, Uranus aspect. Okay. This also makes me think of someone who has to be careful about being overly stimulated. I'm not sure if she deals with any sort of severe depression or severe anxiety, but for some reason to me this gives me an energy of someone that possibly has maybe for doctors have maybe considered putting her on medication because something is not firing in the brain, or it's firing but it's not firing like it should, causing somewhat of a imbalance. So not only is her number 2 or moon energy working against her whenever we talked about it on my numerology guide, but also this Uranus moon energy is kind of like working against her as well. Okay. And this also could just really be hereditary because this is an aspect for that family history. Okay. Now, the thing is, with this moon Uranus energy, it also can be that sudden onset of emotional, like fireworks, and almost like maybe Tourette's, I don't know, schizophrenia. I'm going too deep because I know that's probably just too extreme, but it really gives that. Like literally, and it feels like somebody who's just quiet, and then all of a sudden it burst. Anger, sadness, I don't know, regret, fear, all those emotions rolling in one, and they affect her money because they are in the second house of, again, your possessions, your bank account, but also your self-worth. So that's why I said have to be careful about being overly stimulated. The internet is a no-go. That's probably the main trigger here when in terms of being overly stimulated. So it's like manic episodes, psychotic episodes. Again, it's probably too extreme, but it kind of comes across that way. And the crazy thing is, this is shown in your, relationships. So you have another thing that is coming against you. But it goes back to what I was saying before. The men that she goes for, maybe, or however the situation is, they don't accept her for who she is. So they don't understand this part of her. So the whole anxiety thing is not a ploy. I don't think so. In my opinion, I don't think so. And again, this may stem, like I said before, from family history, but the biggest thing is this anxiety stems from here because these planets are in a house where it is about how you feel about yourself, how you see yourself. Okay? And with this particular placement as well, since Uranus is involved and it's all in Aquarius, like I said before about the internet, it can be a blessing or a curse. In this particular instance, for her, I think it's maybe starting to become more of a curse, or it always was a particular curse, because she needs to be stimulated with this particular placement, but she can fall prey to overstimulation and she probably doesn't realize it. It's almost just like mind control. I mean, I know this probably, way out there, but it kind of feels like that. It's almost like if you are putting on some headphones and the music in it is like mind controlling you. It's kind of like that in a way when it pertains to her. But she may try to push through, or it may be one of those things where people around her are trying to convince her that no, it's okay. You need social media, but she needs a social media manager. She needs somebody else to probably post on social media, and she needs to probably go through hiatuses where you're on it for maybe like for like a month, and then you're off of it for like 6 or 7 months. Like seriously, it may need to be that extreme to keep her emotionally intact, because emotionally speaking, she cannot handle it. Her brain never turns off. So I'm surprised that she is not as out there. She probably maybe, I mean, and somebody like this, I wouldn't put it past them to have a burner account where they are just going in. I mean, that's just as bad as well, you know. But either way, another thing too is ostracized. With this moon and Uranus energy, you could feel like an outcast, but you don't want to feel like an outcast. You don't want people to make you feel like that something is wrong with you. But of course, moon is tied to the public. So people, they may they may like accept you at first and be like, "Oh my god, this is so cool. You're so different." But then after a while it's almost just like, "Why are you different?" And I thought this was just a phase. I thought you being this way was just, something that you were doing for show. But no, it's for real. Realistically speaking, I think Summer Walker is lost because she is being overstimulated by her environment, but really by the world. So I get the creative genius about it. I get that because it's good. The product is good because, again, she can visualize. She may be able to literally sit there in her mind and walk through somebody's entire story without never even having to meet them, but she can just picture it story by story, chapter by chapter. She can do that. That is hard to do. Hence making a good writer. you know. Another thing as well, with Moon being here in the second house, Moon in the second house, um, what was it? And I think it being in a Saturn ruled sign, this can make for someone who can do good in the area of business that's tied to liquids. Now, use your imagination on that. Now, not all liquids are bad, but use your imagination on that because also the second house is the house of the throat. So once again, use your imagination on that, or you know what I'm saying. So that it can be lucrative you know. But let's take a look at the degree of her Aquarius moon. Her Aquarius moon is on the seventh degree. So let's take a look at that. And then I will see if she has a fixed sign on her a fixed star on her moon. I'm not sure because this is actually my first time looking at her chart. That's why I was so shocked to know that her birth time was on there. So, Aquarius 7 degrees says escapement, independent, freedom lover, gain wisdom through service and suffering. Remember what we talked about before. If we go back here, what are the highlights associated with her number 2 energy? A need to relate to others through feelings and emotions, which you don't want it to be a situation where you're going through things for material. And sometimes, or somebody is convincing you to go through things for material. You don't want that to be the case because that just does you in, especially emotionally speaking. Now, does she have a fixed star on her moon? Uh, what's it? Control F. Um, yes, she does. Fixed star boss, keen intellect, good for what I say, keen intellect, good for business and military analysis. So, but you see in that has nothing to do with what? Fame. It has nothing to do with fame, which is kind of like what I was alluding to anyway. What else do I want to look at? I mean, I kind of already talked about that. Moon Venus wants to be married, but like I said, I feel like she wants to be married maybe more than, she wants to be a musician, which in turn can cause her to be pulled into pointless relationships. Because again, with her moon and her Mercury having this intellectual and mind battle, constantly questioning things, she struggles to separate between what's real and what's fake. And guess what that does? It leaves the door open for people to possibly lie to you, manipulate you, to convince you that they want what you want, but they really don't. But you believe them because the desire is there for love. Personality wise, she wants to be loved more than anything. Even though she probably is materialistic, that's a negative side of her. But deep down, she wants to be loved more than anything. Moon Mercury is in the fifth house of children as well. Well, Mercury's in the fifth house of children as well. So She need I don't well, she needs a partner, especially to help balance out that internal battle that could possibly pass down to her children, or her children may have to see this. So you need a buffer. You need somebody to be like, okay, Summer, you're about to go there. I need you to calm down. Like, don't worry about it. Take a step away. I will be here with the kids. We're cool. She needs that. I don't think she's gonna get that. I will hope she does, but I don't think she's gonna get it unless she changed her picker. Because Gemini Venus. And that's another thing I didn't mention. We know Gemini has a duality situation going on as well. So let's not, get it twisted here. She may also be somebody where she may cheat as well, you know. But um we just may not necessarily know about it. So in some type of a manner, she can be a little bit villainous, maybe. But yeah, Moon and Venus, prosperity and success through women. It is favorable when it comes to marriage and family life, but it gives short-lived what did I say? It gives short-lived popularity. Remember what I said? She may have used this as a pathway in order to get what she wanted, which is marriage, which is a family. Because also in the wheelhouse of family and relationships, she may be someone where she's ridiculously sympathetic when it pertains to men. My opinion, a pushover, lacking boundaries. But a lot of that could be because she is afraid to lose them, maybe even having fear that. It's crazy that, she is Summer Walker, so she has access to, you know, a lot of people that want to date her, right? However, I feel like in her mind, she is that particular type of way in relationships because she doesn't believe that she has that access to more than one man. Like more than one relationship. It's almost like she settles because in her mind, it may be, well, who is going to accept me or deal with me the way that I am. So you sell yourself short. But a lot of this is you're gonna have to clean up your own shit too. This just can't always just be a situation for forever and the day where you are being the way that you're being emotionally and you're not trying to do something to help find a way to cope and balance better. That cannot be your talking point. I mean, not with me. I'm not dealing with it. You know what I'm saying? um, but it may come a point in time when it pertains to the men that she's dating that gets to what I just said, that point where it's like, I'm not dealing with this shit anymore. I can't do it. But again, it is a lot to take on. Emotionally, it is draining. Mentally, it is draining. They also may feel like they are under pressure because of the fact that she wants to be married and have a happy family. She may be putting them under pressure as well to, like, if you're coming on in, you need to come on in, you need to stay, you need to have a decision by tomorrow. What's the point in doing that if you're going to make excuses for the shit that they do? What's the point? Let's okay, I already looked at that degree, looked at that fixed sign. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about when it pertained to Summer Walker's personality. So I hope you guys enjoyed this particular video. Make sure again that you like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel before you leave. Drop your suggestions, of course, and I will see you guys on the next video.